On warm summer evenings, the house of Jay Gatsby came alive, with light pouring out of hundreds of little windows, servants running from place to place, live music pouring out of each room, and lines of guests arriving to attend one of Gatsby's famous parties, the epitome of the Roaring Twenties. The book, The Great Gatsby, by F. Scott Fitzgerald, was placed in this setting, a setting where rich paraded around with their big possessions and their big personalities, leaving only a husk of their true self behind. Although many would argue that we are more than we pretend to be, I would argue that people are defined by their actions. Because our actions are a physical manifestation of our character, whether that character is fake or not. The classic text of The Great Gatsby tells the story of Jay Gatsby and Daisy Buchanan through the eyes of the narrator, Nick Calloway. Mr. Calloway moves out east after attending college to become a bondsman. Nick buys a house next to the prominent Gatsby mansion and reconnects with his cousin Daisy Buchanan and her husband Tom Buchanan. What Nick soon finds out is that years ago, Gatsby and Daisy were once in love. As the story develops, we learn about Tom's infidelity, and Daisy and Gatsby reconnect. This newfound connection blossoms into a relationship, and when Tom finds out, it boils over into an argument where Daisy admits that she loved both men. On the way home from the conflict, Daisy drives Gatsby's yellow car and hits and kills Tom's mistress, Myrtle Wilson. Mr. Wilson, grief-stricken after his wife Myrtle's death, reaches for his revolver. After doing some investigation, he finds out that Gatsby's yellow car killed his wife. Tom Buchanan gave him the impression that Gatsby killed Myrtle. The same day, Mr. Wilson murdered Gatsby in his pool and killed himself in the same breath. The document Meet Your Mammoth by Tim Urban describes how humans naturally have an instinct to fit in with the majority and initially seek approval of others. The article takes us back to 500 BC when humans were nomadic people roaming the earth in tribes and developed a fixation on tribal-style social survival. Urban describes this social survival mammoth whose central ability is to ensure that we endure and thrive. This ancient mentality explains human behaviors such as bragging, longing to fit in, and to be liked by others. Another main topic Urban explains is called our AV, which stands for authentic voice. Unlike our mammoth, the AV is our moral code, a form of personal experience, reflection, and our own personal take on compassion and integrity. The article goes into explaining how we no longer need our mammoth to survive. It tells readers how they can get rid of their own mammoth. In The Great Gatsby, you can most easily see Nick and Daisy are guilty for becoming people that they pretend to be. Nick describes to the reader from the start of the book that he was appalled by the behaviors of the wealthy, specifically Tom Buchanan. Nick describes Tom. He seems to say, "I'm stronger and more of a man than you are." Despite Nick's distaste for Tom, Nick seemingly spends much of his free time with the Buchanans. He talks about how disgusted he is by their extravagant parties and disregard for other people, saying, "They were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up all things and retired back into their money and let other people clean up the mess that they had made." All in the same time, Nick finds himself participating in the same activities, such as parties at Gatsby's house, the party in New York with Tom and his mistress, where Nick gets drunk. Nick judges the Buchanans for their carelessness, but how different is Nick really when he acts the same way as they do, even if he isn't of the same social economic status? In Taming Your Mammoth, it describes how we are what we pretend to be when it talks about the concept of the mammoth. When the mammoth's hurricane of fear and social disapproval plays a factor in our lives, it consumes us. By constantly trying to fit in and gain the approval of others, we end up falsifying our own personality. We become the person that craves praise and approval and the feeling of being on the right side of any social or moral dichotomy, losing our authentic self. By pretending to be someone fits in with society. Most people live their lives for no purpose other than to be socially approved, making them into somebody that they are not based off of their actions. Although many would argue that we are more than we pretend to be, it's simply not true. In the poem by Frank Outlaw, he cautions us to watch our thoughts because they become words, to watch our words because they become actions, to watch our actions because they become habits, to watch our habits because they become character, to watch our character because it becomes our destiny. Outlaw shows the cycle of how we consummate our character. It is who we are based on our habits, and habits come from our actions. I believe that one can change their character by changing their actions. But character and actions cannot be separated, for they are one and the same. In this case, if we pretend to be something that we are not, we are creating a character that will define us as a person, even if that person is not our authentic self. This prompts the question, who am I? I have proven that the answer is that you are the summation of your actions, thoughts, and words. The legacy you will leave at your death will be the story of your character. Whether your character is careless, letting your social mammoth control you, or your character is authentic. In light of this, we must heed the words of Kurt Vonnegut when he says, "We are what we pretend to be, so we must be careful about what we pretend to be."